Welcome to the Life Podcast with BFR, a space where we celebrate life, support families, and inspire our community to thrive. In today's episode, we are excited to reintroduce our medical clinic director, Naomi Buchanan. Hey y'all, we're glad to be back. I am actually joined this morning with someone who hardly needs an introduction, Miss Kim Lewis, our executive director. Hey Kim.
Hello Tess, excited to be back.
Well, I am really excited. I feel like I always say that, but I can usually just not control my excitement for every episode because I get really into all the things we are talking about. There's so many fun things to talk about, but our listeners, you might remember an episode that we had a few episodes ago, and it was titled, How Do We Reach Her? And we had our medical clinic director, Naomi Buchanan, and we just didn't get to cover everything that we wanted to cover in that episode. So we are so glad to have you back, Naomi.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
So we have lots more fun things to talk about as far as the clinic goes. In our last episode, please go back and listen to that if you have not gotten the opportunity, because this is really like a part 2 to that first episode titled, again, How Do We Reach Her?, where we discussed kind of an overview of the clinic and how we serve abortion-minded and abortion-vulnerable women over there. Everything that we do over in the clinic is with that in mind. But there were a few things that we didn't get to in that episode. But before we just completely dive on in, Naomi, anything that you want to share real quick about, just to recap a little bit of your role at BFR and exactly what it means when we call you the clinic director?
Yeah. Well, as being the clinic director, I really oversee all things medical, and that's both clinic and mobile unit. Staffing, scheduling, as well as compliance, infection control, and then, administrative things as well. But yesterday I put a new hat on my head and I was equipment manager technician. That's a new one for me.
Yes, and might I add, this girl saved us about $3,000. So donors, I hope you're listening in. The great links that all of our team go to. But yes, Naomi put on a new hat yesterday and repaired our Trophon. The power had gone out a few days ago, and when it did, it kind of messed up our equipment, and Naomi had to learn how to do a reset. So kudos, Nay, for all the hats you wear.
Okay, for all us non-medical people, you need to explain what that device is.
So that is our high-level disinfectant machine. So our ultrasound probes, they go in that machine and they are disinfected at a high level, just providing excellent infection control.
That's pretty important.
It is very important.
I'm glad you were able to take care of that.
Don't pass out my number. I am not coming to your business or your medical clinic to offer my services.
That's so funny.
You just never know. A day in the life, you never know what it's going to require. We laugh and say, and other duties as needed. That's on all of our job description, and you just never know what that's going to entail. So,
yeah. Well, in every episode, we try to call back to our vision, like the reason that we're here. Kim, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Part of our vision statement is at Bartow Family Resources, we want to see a community where every life is sacred and families are valued, educated, and supported. And we do that in so many ways through our medical services and our non-medical, our BFR Parenting Academy. But for our purposes today, of course, we're going to talk about and pick up on the conversation, I think, where we left off last time, of how do we reach her? How do we reach the at-risk woman? How do we reach the abortion-vulnerable, abortion-minded woman? Because it's not an easy thing to do. And Naomi and her team do such a fabulous job at not only helping us reach her, but then once we engage her, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And so, let's pick up a little bit with that, Naomi. Everything we do in the clinic is with her in mind. So what does that really mean?
It really means that this is this is her time. This is her appointment. This is her space. And she is inviting us into oftentimes very dark and scary and unsure, sometimes decisions that she has to make. And so, we prepare for her, whether she's walking in the door, whether she's coming on the mobile unit. We want to be able to be a place that is safe for her to be able to express those thoughts and feelings and be able to kind of wrestle with the decision that she's making.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what is it's hard to say average situation, because there really is no average situation. But for our listeners out there who maybe have no idea what those factors are, those vulnerabilities that we talk about, and you kind of do an assessment when clients come in. What are some of the vulnerabilities, those kind of 5 things that we talk about a lot at the clinic, that if she's experiencing even one of those, she could be vulnerable for abortion?
Yeah. So, in the last podcast, we did talk a little bit about that, if she's having instability in transportation, education, support, housing,
maybe her job or...
Yeah. Thanks for jumping in.
I know it's hard off the top of the head to pull all those things.
Like, is that 4 or 5?
Yeah. Like the stability around her, ability to earn income for her and her family is certainly an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, who does she have in her life? Who is her support? Which may be either pushing her towards an abortion or kind of being a positive influence and pushing her away from abortion.
So in our first episode where you shared a lot of these things, there were 2 very important things, additional things, as if there could be any more that you guys already do over there, but 2 additional things that we really didn't get to talk about that I wanted you to be able to share about today. And the first of those 2 things is the impact of after hours. We did mention, I believe, how our nurses go above and beyond, but can you talk a little bit about what I mean when I say that, after hours, and what that looks like, and how does that help us reach her?
Yeah. So it definitely is the answer to how do we reach her. We're available.
Yeah.
And not only is it, through online, she can schedule her appointment online on her own through our website, but we have a text line, and that is staffed not by a call center, across the country. It's staffed by our nurses and our healthcare providers, because we feel like it's really important that if she is going to connect and she's going to reach out to somebody, that it's actually going to be somebody who will be part of her care. So we have a dedicated text line, and oftentimes they're reaching out after 7 p.m., sometimes in the middle of the night. We staff it with a nurse to be on call. She's available. I can't promise 24 hours a day because we do sleep, but she's there to answer those text messages and those phone calls that come in with, questions and concerns.
Can you imagine for a moment that if that was not part of our program, if we didn't make ourselves available, and we only had this window of, 8 to 2 or 8 to 5 even, that we were available, Monday through Friday, because share in a moment when, it's not just Monday through Friday either.
Right.
And so, but can you imagine if that was taken away, what it would be like?
Yeah. We would be missing an opportunity. And so many of our text messages come on Fridays and Saturdays, and women who are purchasing abortion pills or seeking to maybe make that decision are doing so on the weekend. And we just can't turn it off and walk away. It's something that, it's a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week kind of thing. And so we want to be able to be accessible to her. We receive a lot of text messages of just questions. And I think that we all see that this generation now, they're very comfortable in texting and less comfortable on a phone call. And so we get more and more appointments scheduled and really care given through the ability to text message.
Wow. And we're actually open now. It's not been too long that we've been open on a Saturday of the month, correct?
Yeah, we're open one Saturday a month to be able to give opportunity for appointments for women who maybe they can't get off work. They work through the week. And so we've seen those appointments be very successful. And the community really loves having that availability.
And we're also open late on Thursdays.
Yes.
So that helps a lot as well after hours, trying to serve those that are, very structured in their work or school environment and can't come. So it's been a huge, I think, asset to be able to serve her well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a particular story that you could share with our listeners of how you maybe even personally or saw the team impacted or saw the client impacted in just such a profound way? I mean, you've already addressed the fact that we would be missing an opportunity if we weren't making our staff available after hours. But can you give us, maybe a story that has meant something to you or where you've really seen the impact of that availability making a difference in the life of a client?
Yeah. Well, we're nurses. We're also wives and moms and grandmothers. And so we have lives. And, a lot of these phone calls come in or text messages come in and we can't plan for them. So, we're off doing life when these things come in. And it's, for me, I remember I was on call one week and it was on a Saturday afternoon. I was at the ball field watching my son play baseball and a text came in and this girl I could tell was clearly terrified. And, I made the decision to walk away and go sit in my car and spend some time texting with her. And then I got on the phone and actually was able to talk to her. And this is a Saturday afternoon. And she told me, she said, wow, I never thought that I would be able to talk to somebody on a Saturday afternoon. So just showing her that she's important,
right,
and that she's valued and we are there for her.
It's amazing. We would like to take a moment to give a special thanks to our legacy corporate sponsor, Cabins for You. Thank you for your ongoing and steadfast support of Bartow Family Resources. Well, there's another very important thing that we do over in the clinic. And Kim, I'm actually going to turn it over to you for just a second because just from your perspective as the leader of our organization, would you talk to us about APR from your perspective before Naomi dives in and shares with us about what that is on the medical side a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So about 7 or 8 years ago, I was at an international conference that had some great training for pregnancy centers and pregnancy medical clinics out in California. And I went into this breakout session, and they were talking about this new procedure for reversing the effects of the abortion pill. And we were all just mesmerized. And I was like, what in the world is this? And learned that it was simply progesterone, a very safe hormone that, for goodness sakes, our grandmothers, were on progesterone decades ago. And we all know that there's a very limited, if any, side effects of taking progesterone, so safe, and that the use of progesterone could actually override the effects of the mifepristone, the RU46 abortion pill. 60% of the time, so roughly. So it's not 100%, but we've got over 50% chance that would work. So at that point, Marilyn, who was the executive director at the time, and I just began to pray about, we've got to bring this to the clinic. We have to do this because the abortion pill is on the rise. It's the way that this industry is moving forward in the wake of the overturn of Roe v. Wade and all these crackdowns in different states of limiting abortion access. So yeah, we just started that journey, and then we were able to find an OBGYN that was willing to oversee that process in our clinic, and we're super excited and thankful for that. And so we just jumped in, and Naomi was so incredible to lead the clinic and being willing to do that. So we are one of just really a handful of providers around the state of Georgia. There's not a ton of providers that understand it, that do it. And so we're also part of a national network. So if a girl, say, takes the pill and then Googles, can I reverse this, or I regret taking the pill, there's a hotline number, a 1-800 number that is manned 24/7 by a nurse. And then that nurse talks to her, sort of does the vetting, and then looks on the network map to find out who's closest to her. And many times, if they're calling from the Atlanta area, it's going to be us. And so then the phone rings, Naomi's phone rings, and it's that hotline nurse connecting us with the patient. So that's the majority of how that happens. There are other ways she gets to us, but I'll let Naomi kind of pick it up from there. So Naomi, when that hotline nurse calls and says, we've got a client, she's within an hour or hour and a half of your center, kind of share with our listeners what happens at that point in the process.
Yeah. So, like Kim said, we get a notification, a call from the hotline nurse, and she's already talked to the patient, and she's, sort of screened her, and then she hands her off to us, and we connect with her. And by doing that, it immediately establishes a relationship, and then we get to talk to her, get a little bit more information, and then encourage her that we want her to come in. We do see a lot of questions. A lot of women, they're on the fence. They haven't heard of this before. They don't really understand the process. And so, our goal is not to persuade her. It's to give her the evidence-based information that we have. And like Kim said, progesterone has been safely used in pregnancies for 60 years. And so while this is, an off-label use, and we have seen it time and time again that it works. And it works when, the greater success is when she has advanced gestational age. So, she's maybe 6, 7, 8, or even up to 10 weeks. And the quicker that she can get to us, after taking that mifepristone.
Mm-hmm. I know in the community, sometimes when I've been talking about APR, that's been a question that I get often is how what's the window of time, that, someone would call.
Yeah.
Or need to call.
So like Kim said, the abortion pill is actually 2 different pills. And the first one that you take is mifepristone. And that is like a progesterone blocker. So a woman who is pregnant, she is naturally producing progesterone. That is like your pro-gestation hormone. Mm-hmm. And when she takes the mifepristone, it blocks her body from absorbing that progesterone. And so if she has taken that first pill and she has regret, and she doesn't go on to take the second one, which she would take 24 hours later, that's when she can reach out to us and she can start taking the progesterone. So really, if she has not taken that second pill, the misoprostol, she has 72 hours. Mm-hmm. So, some women, they take some 72 hours to kind of make that decision. They, some of them know right away. They will leave the abortion clinic and have just taken it, and they have that guilt. Mm-hmm. So we are available. We saw a woman last year who 90 minutes after she had taken the mifepristone, she was in our clinic, and we were doing an ultrasound, and then we were giving her progesterone to save her baby.
Mm-hmm. And just to give some perspective for our listeners, I think we have about 7 APR babies that are in utero right now.
Currently.
Yes. In the several years that we've been offering this, I think we've had a little over 70 APR calls. Yep. And I know sometimes we screen those out. Like maybe we find a provider that's a little closer than we are that's available to take her in the moment. I think we had about 20 of those that we sort of.
Yeah, because we get calls and women are from adjoining states, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina. We're seeing, getting calls from all over the place, and just geographically, she can't get to us. If she lives 5 hours away, she can't get to us. So then we go back and we do the legwork for her to find her somebody who can see her.
Yeah. This team is amazing to try to make it as easy on her as possible. So
because we're just one of 13 centers in the state of Georgia, right?
Correct. Or providers. Yeah.
Providers
Some of them are OB offices and, different things, but yes.
So that's pretty incredible that we get this opportunity, but then also, it sounds like it's limited.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning that there have been over 4,000 babies born in the U.S.
6,000.
We're up to 6.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. 4,000 was the old stat. So now we're at 6,000 because it's gaining in popularity and in awareness. Just the last 2,000 more babies in the last couple of years. So when you see over 6,000 babies that have been saved and born as a result of a procedure, you can't keep saying that it doesn't work or that it's not effective. The evidence proves otherwise.
So just to clarify what you've just said, you're saying that we've seen in the state of Georgia.
No, in the U.S.
over
6,000 babies
that have been saved
through
APR. Through APR.
With healthy,
Wow.
healthy births.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah.
That these are women who made an abortion decision and then had regret. And they were brave enough to act on that.
That's right.
I think that takes courage.
Absolutely.
It does.
And a lot of the women that we see, it's an emotional roller coaster. If you could just sit back and imagine and think that she had to make that hard decision to begin with, because no woman wants to choose abortion, but she feels like it's her only or best decision in her mind. And so she takes that pill. And then she has regret. And what do I do? And how do I handle this? So then she reaches out to us, and we give her hope. It's up and down.
Right.
It's a lot of emotions for her.
It is. And it takes a lot of courage, as you said, Naomi, to be willing to try a procedure you know little to nothing about, but you've just heard about it or stumbled across it in your search and your desperation. But we thank God for that and for that life-saving option or potentially life-saving option. And I think it's going to just continue to grow in awareness and, and become a more viable option for women as they hear about it, or realize that it's available.
Yeah.
That's been a big part of the battle because it was suppressed by the media. It's not like we could just take out all these ads about abortion pill reversal. They wouldn't run them. They would shut our accounts down. So I want to be clear that there has been a very intentional, strategic move on the part of media to block this information from women.
Wow.
Which is infuriating.
It is.
Infuriating.
It is.
And I'm thankful that over the last, 6 months or so, we've seen some of that lift, and we've seen a shift back to common sense and to free speech and to the right for information to be available to women. And so I think that the lid's coming off a little bit, and we're able to get it out there a little bit more. But still, there's so many that aren't aware that that's available.
And we're able to see a patient, whether that we service this on Opal as well, right? Our mobile unit, Opal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That actually, our availability with our mobile unit has been super successful, that we may see her for the first time in the clinic just because of staffing or, whatever that situation is. But like I said, so many of these women are from a great distance away. We see a lot from Metro Atlanta and south of Atlanta. And so our locations with our mobile unit have been very helpful for her to come back and have another ultrasound because, we see her initially, we do her ultrasound, everything looks good. and we start her on that progesterone. And then it's a waiting game. And so we have to, instruct her to be patient, keep taking that progesterone, and then we want to see her back in a week. If she hasn't connected and gotten in with an OB, which many times she's not able to right away, then we want to scan her again. We want to check on that baby and give her the good news, hopefully, that baby has a strong heartbeat.
Well, we want to stress, as you just said, Naomi, that it is a process. I've had lots of well-meaning folks, even legislators, who are pro-life, say to me, Kim, why can't we just require these abortion clinics or abortion pill providers that if they're going to mail or provide over the counter this abortion pill, that they have to also provide a progesterone pill? Well, it's not that simple. It's not just a pill. It is a regimen, and they have to get started on it immediately, and then they have to continue, as you said, Naomi, they have to continue on that. We're encouraging them to continue through the end of their first trimester. So
yeah. And actually, we have a story of a young woman that we saw. She took the abortion pill, and she immediately had regret, though she waited about 24 hours and called the hotline and connected with us. She was about 6 weeks on her ultrasound when we saw her, but we started her on progesterone. And, she lived quite a distance away. She started bleeding. She was about 8 weeks and started bleeding pretty heavily. We had encouraged her, continue taking the progesterone until you have confirmation that you have either lost the baby or that it's worked. And she missed, her OB appointment, and, life went on, and she just assumed that she had lost that baby. And it was about 2 months later, she texted us and said, oh my gosh, I wasn't feeling well. I went to the doctor and they did an ultrasound, and I'm 14 weeks pregnant, and my baby has a big, strong heartbeat.
Wow.
And so, even just the ability to educate her and tell her, continue taking that progesterone. That's right. Is a process. Yeah. Here are some of the signs and symptoms. This is when you need to seek emergency care. Giving her that continued education piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important. And one thing we're really hoping for and seeking to speak into as we have opportunity is for this to become more of a mainstream, available procedure where, OB offices, more and more offices are becoming aware of it as a viable option for women, instead of sort of shying away from it, because it's been considered, as you've stated before, Naomi, an off-label use of progesterone. How many things do we use for a different purpose than, and it's not. I mean, it's been given for decades, as we've said, correct, for likely to miscarry.
Right.
Well, if you've just taken the abortion pill, guess what? You're likely to miscarry. Right. You're likely to lose that baby. And so it's really no different. It's semantics. And again, I can't stress to our listeners the evil behind all of this and behind the abortion industry. We could go down a whole trail on that. Another time, ties to Marxism and communism and all the things that pull us away from a value-centered culture that says God is the author of life, and He creates life with purpose, for purpose, on purpose. But there's definitely a push in that world to silence any remedy for life, once that abortion pill has been taken. And so just continuing to educate our listeners and community and supporters and every chance we get, I think is so important, because there is still an effort to silence the truth on this issue.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, ladies, we're running out of time a little bit, but before we close out, I mean, in every episode, we say that we want this podcast to be a source of hope, encouragement, but we also want to be a place where we're helping people take action on making a difference in our community. So do you have anything else that you would like to share that, from what we've discussed today, anything that you would say to someone who's hearing this for the first time even and shocked by some of the things that you've said today? I don't know, does anything come to mind, or is anything else in general just about the impact of APR that you would want to share with the community before we close out?
I think it's just, seek knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really, I just want to encourage those listening that this is real. This is happening. 6,000 babies have been born because of this. And so I think it's our duty to, educate ourselves and ask questions, so that we can be a resource to somebody else. We all have, women in our lives, maybe younger women or friends, people that could possibly be faced with an unexpected pregnancy and need our services. And so know what those resources are. Know that this is available and that it works.
Absolutely. And I would just add to that the awareness that, some people may think, well, this is just such a rare thing. I mean, when does this ever happen? Well, let me just be clear that the number one killer of Georgians is not heart disease, as the CDC and Siri would tell you, or cancer or accidents. Those are number 2, 3, and 4. The number one killer of Georgians is abortion. The number one killer of Americans is abortion. Over 30,000 little Georgians lose their lives every year. So this is not a limited thing. This is not a rare occurrence that this is happening. It is epidemic. And because it's done in shame and in darkness and in fear, it's sometimes not known to so many people because they don't think they know anybody that's been in this position. But I can promise you do. You just don't know you do. So, it's important for us to get the word out about abortion pill reversal.
Well, I know that I would not have known about it. I mean, BFR is where I learned about abortion pill reversal. I'll never forget the Night of Life several years ago, Kim, where you discussed that. And so thank you both for how you're serving our community and for how you're even today educating us on this information, because it's so important. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Naomi, for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Life Podcast with BFR. See you next time.